Here is an example of a task analysis, and I want to preface that this example is a top to bottom vertical orientation, so that means the more basic and informing tasks are at the top, and then it progresses all the way down to the bottom with the more dynamic settings, all the way down to the unit learning outcomes. Just putting it out there, we see task analyses done in the inverse, where we have the very top, think of the top of the ladder is the ultimate goal, that unit learning outcome, and at the very bottom of our vertical lines, that might be our informing task. So just know there's two ways to do it, and this particular way is a top to bottom. So this is from high school physical education Speedball, and it's a task analysis. It's an invasion style of game form, and I have my unit learning outcomes here at the bottom. So I have students will perform techniques to advance the ball in a dynamic game setting with mature patterns. They'll understand and execute effective tactics that are appropriate for a dynamic gameplay invasion game. And we've got our an effective cognitive one that shows understanding respect for a variety of origins, customs, and cultures through discussion, presentation, and reflection. We have a fitness-related learning outcome that shows their understanding of the demands that a particular game form might have for fitness enhancement. So it could be health or skill-related fitness. And then over here we have our affective main unit learning outcome is they'll identify peer and self situations of great play, team support, metacognition, which is the self-awareness of your actual competency. So kind of knowing how good you are in reality, or knowing where you need to improve, or knowing what parts of a movement are better or worse, or technically sound, not technically sound in our situations. And also their own self-efficacy. So in reflections after gameplay. So those are, just so you know, that's what we're working towards. And where I have some of these columns, we've got vertical columns here. This learning outcome really works with these main three techniques. So overhand throw, chest pass, catching and catching on the run, and scoring by kicking. Those are all techniques. Our tactical unit learning outcomes, they relate here to creating space, attacking the goal, and decision making. So the three that were chosen to focus on for Speedball. The cultural respect and cognitive understanding, game origins and prevalence is our theme for that area of the task analysis. Fitness connection has its own column, and then our affective specific, supporting social play, has its own column and also has its own learning outcome. So that's what we're looking for. For each area, we've got our informing task. That is the very first thing. It's like, I always think of it, the first time you're ever going to teach overhand throw and chest pass. Granted, in high school, we hope that students have been taught this before, but we can never assume. We do want to show it in the context of the game, show, diagram, demonstrate a variety of ways that they can see what a correct and technically sound performance looks like for that technique. And we also want to show and explain the critical elements. And so that's a great idea to have the critical elements of that tactic or technique of the day written on the whiteboard. You'll verbally remind them of that. And then in their practice setting, so throw with partner is their basically first practice task that comes out of being informed of what throw and chest pass is in Speedball. You're going to be using cues that match up with your critical elements, and you'll be looking around for the common errors that you typically see them do in those practice scenarios. Same thing goes for other techniques. In our tactics, informing tasks often are verbal and demonstrating. And so a verbal check for understanding about creating space. So maybe we do a little practice game and we ask some questions. That's how we set it up. It's the anticipatory set for what creating space in the game of Speedball looks like. And so our informing practice task is cognitive. It's a walkthrough of some game scenarios. So that likely is us putting students on a kind of a demo court, and maybe the other students are gathered around watching, and we do a very slow walkthrough of the game and what scenarios are presented and how creating space, different ways of doing it, can help a play be successful, which essentially is going to be attacking the goal and scoring, which are other tactics that we have. decision making, just make a space here. Decision making is a very major tactic in really all of our gameplay, but absolutely in Speedball, just because there's so many different types of techniques that are involved and ways to score in that game. So walking through game scenarios is really, you can see it a couple times, is going to be a major aspect of this unit and of this type of game. So we've got techniques, kind of at least the intro, informing tasks covered. For game origins and prevalence, it may be just a verbal tip of the day. Maybe each day of that particular invasion game unit, or the days that you're playing Speedball, you're giving them 2 fun facts about Speedball, where it came from. Maybe it's something written on a whiteboard. Maybe it's something in the locker room. Maybe that's an assignment that you give. 5 students are assigned Speedball fun facts, and they have to find a tip of where it comes from, some of its cultural past and origins, and those 5 students, that's their task. Maybe it's an extra credit task where you have the students pull it up. Maybe in a different type of sport, say it's a big invasion game unit, maybe Speedball, 5 students have to find fun facts about Speedball, and then maybe another 5 students find 5 fun facts. Maybe you're doing flag football next, and so that's going to be in that task analysis, so that could be attached to points too. Fitness connection, so verbal check for understanding of health-related fitness after some short gameplay. And so after some quick gameplay, asking them, okay, what type of health-related fitness is really involved here? And kind of running through those 5 major components. I do also really like to bring in skill-related fitness as well. If we're playing games which is going to involve plenty of the skill related aspects, so balance, coordination, absolutely. If we have any object control skills like throwing and catching, power or speed if you're having to move quickly up and down a court. So I also like to make sure to include skill related concepts too. And then supporting social play. I may not necessarily just have an informing lecture on what social play is, but the way I like to inform it is I find situations when they're doing this other stuff, they're doing these practice settings, I'm going to stop the whole class when I saw something that was ideal. Obviously, if I see something not ideal for supporting social play, I will stop the involved students and address it at a more private, personal level instead of making a huge example out of a student who didn't do something well. It's a strategy I like to use to really, really reinforce the positive gameplay and use some questioning of that. And so that's our main categories. That's how we're informing the task. And then we get to this chunk that's extending, refining, and assessing. And every category, every column moves a little bit different. So we tend to see a little bit more learning blocks. That's what each of these boxes are in our techniques. Or if it's something new, tactics may not have been taught a ton previously at their middle school level, for example. And so you want to spend much more time perhaps on the tactics. And you see here like game origins and prevalence, the column is not very deep. We've really got like 3 main things here in our assessment. So it's really up to you, the time that you have available, how in depth, and really what the learning outcome is trying to get at, of how many actual blocks and you have here within each vertical column. I like to identify my assessing tasks, so I usually make the color different or change the text on it. So here, self-video review checklist. So that means it's a checklist that I create, and I take video of students at various types when they're playing all these different games, 4-on-4, catch and move, maybe some kicking with a goalie, small game. I just take video clips throughout the class, and I will make sure that I have students involved in these video clips. I may have them help with assisting in taking the video as well. And then creating a checklist that has them identify their own examples of correct technique of throwing or catching or scoring by kicking, and then of actually using the tactics in the correct situations, making their decisions. And so I like to use video initially, and then later I may have a teacher observation checklist. So that could be towards the end of the unit where they're playing, they're in their small sided games after we've gone through all of our teaching. And then I have a checklist of looking for them to show overhand throw with mature form. So they get the chance to understand the review process by themselves. For some of my tactics, there's that cognitive element. I am going to do a quiz, but it's not going to be multiple choice on where did the game come from and the rules. I'm going to write out some scenarios, kind of like problems, or essay problems that they have to write out their answers. So some writing's involved. During a walkthrough, maybe there's a quick quiz. So maybe one of their quiz questions is watching an actual walkthrough situation and then responding either on a short quick quiz. For my game origins and prevalence, exit ticket reflection. So that could be related on popularity of the sport based off of a quick online assignment that they had. For the fitness connections, maybe a quick assignment that homework they have to do one day is they have to look online and find some agility drills that's part of our skill related fitness that can help, practice of those can help enhance performance in a speedball game. Movement prep, that's kind of like our warm up. What would you do at the beginning of a game or beginning of a class training session that would help prepare the body for the physical demands of speedball? So which is a lot of quick back and forth, up and down the court movements, a lot of change of direction. What are some warm up types of activities that match up with that align with that? And then the assessments that I knew I wanted to put in for social play is a self-reflection on their own improvement throughout the speedball course of this unit, and their own physical literacy, which is their confidence in playing as well as their actual competence, how good they actually are. So that's their metacognition. And then also a self-assessment on peer support. So having them rate themselves on how well in this unit so far, or in speedball, they've been supporting their peers by giving encouragement or giving advice, by using words appropriately, that kind of stuff. So this is a pretty decent example. The next step from here would be creating a block plan and deciding, okay, on day one, I'm going to demo and show a diagram of overhand throw. They'll throw with partner in space, and maybe a quick game of keep away. And you've kind of got this covered. Maybe this becomes your warm-up then for day 2 and day 3. And then kind of going down with these different learning blocks and deciding which ones you'll plug into which day. So hope that helped a bit.